Hello and welcome back to this channel. In this video I'm gonna discuss why I believe Vital is one of the most powerful and capable synthesizers as far as frequency modulation or even better audio rate modulations go. And it's gonna take a while. I don't expect to discuss and go to the bottom of every possibility you can achieve doing audio rate modulation in Vital, because that would make it something eternal, and I don't even think I know everything about it. And yeah, this will be it. I have to thank for a bunch of the contents in this video for the things I learned and managed to put in here. I have to thank Broth, who is one of the sound designers from the Vital team. I believe there's a bunch of his patches in the factory pack, and who is also an awesome YouTuber. He made awesome videos. I learned a lot from them. I totally recommend checking them out. And Baphometrix, who is also a YouTuber. He was also in the beta testing team for Vital, as far as I know, and his introduction videos about Vital have been very, very useful to me. And I guess if you like this synth, it might be very useful for you as well. So, let's get going. So here we are with our synth interface, and we have the patch I used earlier to make that noise I welcomed you to this video. And as you can see here, we only have one sine wave, one envelope doing a bunch of things, and this LFO doing a way bigger bunch of things. How am I to do this? Well, it's pretty simple actually. If I go here and initialize the thing, I can see that there are that LFOs have a possibility to be set to be key tracking. What does this mean? It means this LFO aren't LFOs anymore. You know, L stands for low. LFO means low frequency oscillator, and an oscillator which is one octave below my main oscillators isn't really low frequency anymore. But the point is that I can still use it as a modulation source, even though it's become a lot faster. So if I say, let me turn this into a sine wave, which is more, more intelligible in an FM context, and this is not a sine wave, right? Sorry, I need to put something in this harmonic spectrum. So like here I have a sine wave, and now I use this thing to modulate its phase. I could modulate the pitch and make some linear FM, but I'll stand to do, some old school DX FM, which is improperly called FM, but still is what most people call FM. So I wouldn't be so too picky about it. And I'll say here 3 sines. This is a simple draw wave table I've made in my user LFO packs. And this thing, right, I have 3 sines in one period of this LFO, which will mean the actual frequency of this sine wave will be 3 times that of my LFO. The LFO is 1 octave below the fundamental, so it means this thing will be 1/5, not exactly 1/5 in the equal temperament, it will be 1/5 and 2 cents. Anyway, the third harmonic of the octave below. So it's 1.5 ratio FM operator, you would consider. And so let me reduce this. You see this here already makes it sound like something very different from a sine wave. This is a sine wave, that wasn't a sine wave. Now, if I keep going the DX path, I will get an envelope to modulate the amount of this. And, with this thing and a little bit of reverb, you're already deep in the 80s with very little effort. The thing can get a lot more complex, because if you think about it, one LFO is not bound to be one single operator. As long as you don't want to modulate the frequency of the operator itself, a whole layer of operators can be done by one single LFO. Because, this one was modulating with 3 sines. Like, for example, if I can do the same thing again, say LFO1, modulate the phase of oscillator 1, and again, change my mapping, like 8 sines, and have another envelope modulating this, Let's go envelope 3. Let's make it even shorter and pluckier. And like envelope 2, let me make this longer. And you can hear that this has definitely an impact on the amount of this plucky, noisy thing in the attack. And I could actually modulate this with velocity if I wanted to do something more, you know, electric piano-like. And yeah, I'm already in that space. Now, this is just staying in this wonderful world of 80s electric pianos, but we can do a lot more, and a lot of things you couldn't easily do with a DX synth. Like, well, we could change the shape of this one. We could have another oscillator being frequency modulated by this. We could add a second LFO and use this second LFO to modulate the phase of the first. Which can be, you know, becoming a thing like, you know, I'm having one operator which is modulating two operators below it, which are modulating my only actual oscillator. This can be pretty interesting. And like, especially if I give some more space to this envelope so that I actually hear what's going on. Now, this thing is modulating it a lot. You know, it gets different. This thing is now, again, 8. It's a ramp wave. This LFO2, yep, this is, I haven't put this to audio rate. This explains everything. Now, these 9 signs are really too many. This, you see, it's gonna make everything a lot messier. But I found out that as far as these things go, increasing the amount of oversampling kind of helps, but not really too much. I mean, though, as you probably know, it's pretty easy in doing FM to transform a sound into little short of a fart. But it's not such a bad thing if you think about it. You know, let me get a little bit philosophical here. You see, there's several types of synths. There's synths that people think they are good synths because they're basically one huge sweet spot. No matter how you program them, you always get something usable. You always get something that, I don't know, somehow gets something out of your mind, out of your memory. There's a bunch of those. And there are synths which some people consider bad, and I really don't. I really think those are really interesting synths because they have a tendency in a bunch of possible configurations to lead you way far away from usually, you know, from commonly heard sounds into a place which I like to call the fart zone. It's a place which is very flatulent and stinky, a bit like the bog of eternal stench from the Labyrinth movie, but that's where, you know, the gems are, in my opinion. You know, like, there's tiny little spots around there that just lead you outside of the fart zone into a sound, you know, which hasn't been heard too often before, and which is pretty interesting. And there's a lot of ways to go mining for diamonds in the fart zone with Vital using these tricks. Now, I'm gonna go and show you a few more tricks, if I may call them like this, in that regard, that make use of these techniques. Like, say, for example, I'll get LFO1 again. Let me remove, like, still having these envelopes. Let me make these envelopes very different, much longer. Both of them, though, in a different way. Let me make this so that it makes a tiny bit of sense. Now, for example, I could get LFO1, let me get both of these modulations to 0, and then get LFO1 again to modulate the modulation from the envelope. But in this case, I'm not gonna make it be something like this. I'm gonna make it into a square wave. what happens here is that we have this thing is being modulated sometime yes and sometime. If we look in the advanced tab here, we will see that there is part of the sound which is nearly unaffected, and part of it, like, you know, like I'm slicing the waveform, and there's a part in which the modulation is happening and one in which it isn't. So, for example, here I'm doing it with this modulation one, which was a third, which was actually, see, let me make it so that it will sound a little better. Because if I go and I have this thing work only for 1/3 of the time, and since those are three signs, I will have a sine modulating my phase only for 1/3 of the time. It is one sine which is just this long, modulating the thing, while the rest keeps going, keeps not being modulated. And you will see again this thing. And you can do, because what I'm doing here is basically transforming this, using this mod mapper as a sort of a switch, so that, you know, it switches the modulation on and off. Now, this is not all I can do. I can also do the same things with random generators, because random generators too can be key tracked. They stay random, they stay kind of uncontrollable, but especially if I think of doing this, you know, just a bit of the time, like I'm doing here, like, for example, let me get this thing again, my random generator modulating again the phase, which is getting modulated a lot, and maybe I can make it stereo. This is just a mess, right? But then I'm gonna go and get this envelope. Let me get this to 0. We'll get one of these envelopes to modulate this. Let me remove this thing, so you know, we're gonna hear what is gonna happen as the only thing out of that thing. And now I'm gonna get, say, again, another LFO1 again to modulate this amount. This modulation, this oscillator one phase modulated by the random generator. No, not really, not this one. I didn't mean to modulate this one. I need something else. I want this random one to be modulating. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted to modulate. I wanted to modulate the amount of modulation added by the envelope, like I was doing earlier. Now on this one, I'm gonna put it and turn again into a sort of a square wave. Let me make it. And you can do a lot with this. You can change the frequency of it so that it is even faster, maybe a lot faster, how much faster you want it to be. You can change it into a sample and hold. It will sound much different, into other random generator. I mean, I find this kind of interesting, don't you? So, now this thing, now this random one modulation 8 amount, I really don't like this thing. This wasn't expected. You see, we are getting, you know, the sine wave is still very, very much audible, because the things, you know, most of the time, this oscillator is actually just working as a sine wave with a bit of modulation, but it's mostly a sine wave. But then there is, for 1/3 of the time, this madness induced by this Lorentz attractor modulating the phase again and messing everything up. Kind of cool. I mean, for me, it's very cool. I found out I could make a bunch of interesting sounds out of it, get weird textures. There's more than this, you know, like, for example, you could make even the FM modulations themselves stereo, and Now, for example, this one is modulation 1 amount isn't controlled by anything because I removed it, so there's very little point in making it. Where is modulation 1 amount? Here, envelope 2, modulation 1. And I can make this 2 stereo and make it, for example, having this is modulation 3 and having this thing modulated by an envelope which is at its time modulated by velocity. But yeah, let me change it to the other way around. And make, because this thing is stereo, you know, like so. I could make stereo this one, wouldn't change a lot really. So without even bothering doing any detuning, any unison, anything of the sort, I already have this amount of mess. If I do a little bit of detuning here with a stereo mode source, and maybe a little less because it will get kind of crazy. My sound ends up having quite a significant amount of stereo opening. I could even use this random, which is already stereo, to modulate my tuning and I don't know, you know, I mean, I kind of know if I just add this thing a little bit of reverb and delay. I don't know what is the reason why this thing happens, but you know, Synth has a tendency to give legitimacy to a sound. Maybe it's because real sounds have reverb. You know, if you're hearing something in the mechanical world, it will have some reverb. Or maybe it's just the same psychological thing that, you know, like what jazz players would say, like repetition legitimizes. You know, you have something that, yo, you made a mistake, do it again. Do the same mistake again. It will make sense. It will give your track some sense. Because if you made a mistake and you do it again, it is not a mistake anymore. It is something you've been carefully planning to do in the track. You know, and now, you know, if you get a little bit of delay, it means, oh, this thing is happening again and again. So it's... So, I don't know how you would like me to call this patch, because I'm gonna give it a name and save it, maybe before, and you know, I'll eventually put this on my gumroad, probably for free. I'll put a link to my gumroad down here in the description, and you can go check this out. There's gonna be a lot more, I don't know how I call it something like glassy FM texture. So these are just, you know, a bunch of things you can do with it. And you know, I'm deliberately limiting myself to looking at what I'm doing with the oscillators, because you can, of course, use these as modulators for all these other things, for the filter, even for the effects, for things in the sample. There's lots of possibilities. Like, I'll get you this thing I've done a little bit ago, you know, it's called Bubbles from the Bog, because that's actually where it came from. And yeah, there's a lot of rate modulation happening. As you can see here, this LFO is doing a lot of stuff. I will put this too on my gumroad. Anyway, yep, this is it basically. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and even more, I hope you learned something from it that inspired you and your sound design research and experimenting. And well, yeah, it's a big, deep bog of unusual sounds to explore and to get something out of, which can come in handy, maybe making the music a little less boring than it is lately. Now that I've been saying all this, I will have to be a proper YouTuber and do that little bit of mandatory self-promotion. Ask you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel down here and maybe leave me a like. If you like this video, leave me a comment, tell me what you think about it. Or even if you didn't like it, let me know what you didn't like about it, and well, I don't know, I'll try to fix it in the next videos. You know, you improve by criticism and all of these things. Then, well, I can just say goodbye and hope you enjoy your adventures in the fart zone and come back with amazing sonic diamonds.